I am Community Chloe. Welcome to Her Story RVA, a virtual women's empowerment series curated with Black women in mind. This episode is sponsored by Urban Baby Beginnings. This evening, we'll be discussing the importance of representation in breastfeeding imagery, and resources. Black Breastfeeding Week is coming up August 25th through the 31st. Breastfeeding Week aims to promote positive and empowering images of Black breastfeeding mothers and babies. According to the CDC, increased breastfeeding among Black women could decrease infant mortality rates by as much as 50%. That's good news. Tonight, we're joined again by founder and executive director of Urban Baby Beginnings, Stephanie Spencer, as she continues to share resources and connect us through Urban Baby Beginnings. Stephanie, how are you?
Hi, Clovia. It's good to see you again. I'm doing
Yeah,
well.
absolutely. And I'm also excited to reintroduce Janine Rogers. Janine joined us for our last episode for Black Maternal Mental Health last month, and she's back with us. Miss Janine Rogers is a birth sister, certified lactation specialist, and supporter of urban healing. I love it. Herbal healing, supporting all pregnant persons in their journey through education and resources. Come on in, Janine.
Nice to see you again. Thanks for having me.
Yes, it's good to have you back. Now, tonight we're discussing the importance of Black breastfeeding and bringing awareness to why it's essential to Black mothers. In your own words, why do you think it's important for us to talk about breastfeeding among Black mothers and the significance of it? Let's start with you, Stephanie.
I think overall it's important for community because you mentioned something that was really important, which is that we can reduce infant mortality by 50% just simply by breastfeeding. And we can also reduce maternal mortality as well because there are benefits to mother as well as the baby. So overall, that's the most important thing. But also, I think just we need to elevate this conversation because generationally we've lost some of this information, and people really need help, especially in the Black community, to continue their breastfeeding experience and be successful. So that's also why today we really wanted to talk about that, and also why it's Breastfeeding Month and Black Breastfeeding Week and all of those things.
Yeah, which is very important to all birthing mothers, if you will. All right, Jeannie, and I want to hear from you. Why is it so important for Black mothers to breastfeed their babies?
Well, I think the most important thing is to understand that they can do it despite the lack of resources that may be available and
Mhm.
despite the misinformation that's been passed down to us generationally around what breastfeeding looks like. It's an option for us for the betterment of our baby psychologically, development, and also for us in our healing and postpartum. So making sure that women understand that it's a benefit for you and for your baby.
That's a good thing. Snatch that body back. Let's go ahead to the next question. As a birth sister, Janine, and certified lactation specialist, can you share with us your experience as assisting with breastfeeding resources, tips, and et cetera, and et cetera?
Yeah, it's unfortunately we have a lot of black breastfeeding, chest feeding persons coming into it again really misinformed around what babies need in order to thrive postpartum in terms of feeding. So a lot of the tips and suggestions and advice and resources I provide new mothers are really around just the basics of what lactation is. So looking at again like latch and positioning, how much a baby needs to feel full each feed the first couple days of life. Understanding that sometimes the 2 ounce pre-filled bottles of milk the hospitals are providing these new moms is not what your baby really needs those first 24 hours. So really working through some self-efficacy matters and touching on the topics to let them know that what is they're doing, what their body is providing, understanding supply and demand are really important. So really starting at the basics of foundation and then addressing any obstacles that they may have around whether it be sore nipples, cracked nipples, flow control, milk production, addressing those in real time because there's so much information and we don't want to overwhelm. So we want to make sure that I'm addressing those issues in real time so that way they feel best supported.
Mhm. Thank you for that, Janine. Now, Stephanie, members at Urban Baby Beginnings have access to health specialists such as lactation specialists. Can you explain why UBB provides this and what the benefits are for mothers working with a lactation specialist?
Absolutely. We when we're trying to provide care for mothers, often we are asking them what are some of their challenges and things that they're experiencing, and they would like us to provide support for. And over 80% of our moms want to breastfeed, but less than 20% say that they're prepared to bring their newborn home and to really feed them adequately. And so there's a huge disparity that's there. That's why Urban Baby Beginnings really wants to focus on lactation support, because the moms really feel like this is important to them. What it looks like for us is really doing an assessment of knowledge. What have you done previously? What was not successful for you? Realizing that we need to talk about this prenatally, because some of those myths can be dispelled before the actually the baby arrives, and it also allows us to work with the family, because the family has to be a unit to work towards ensuring that the longevity of breastfeeding continues. We know that having social support matters, and that's why we've come alongside of the mother as well as her partner and others who are going along this journey, to share with them those tips and tricks to help ensure that they aren't derailed during their breastfeeding journey. And we know that the first couple of weeks are so important, but even the first couple of days are even more so. Why we provide lactation specialists, certified lactation counselors, and connections to others who may have even more experience than that, is because one of the things that really can mess with your mental health is when you have a baby and you don't feel well equipped to feed them properly, and then you don't have the levels of support that are necessary in order for you to be successful, or you second guess yourself, which is often a lot of times what our moms are doing. We second guessed our ability to do this, and then as a result, the first thing we're doing when we have our first challenge is we're grabbing a bottle. But instead, what we want to do is create a network of people, so that instead of us grabbing that bottle, we have specialists that are able to then evaluate what's happening at that moment, so that we can put together a plan. And whether that be working with the specialist or being elevated, to a like IBCLC or someone like that, who can help make sure that the baby is healthy and mom stays well. Those things all happen, through this type of program that we've created.
Well, thank you for that program. It's so needed. As a CLS, Janine, can you understand the risk and disparities about breastfeeding within Black mothers? Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, there are so many variables that contribute to why Black breastfeeding, chest feeding mothers aren't able to breastfeed their babies as long as some of our counterparts. Looking at just systemic racism, a lot of Black and Brown people have to go to work a lot faster and a lot sooner. They may not have the proper health insurance, which may not provide them the correct resources that they need to support whatever their breastfeeding, chest feeding goals are. So, touching again on what Stephanie said, making sure that Urban Baby Beginnings is there to provide them with as much information so that way we can support whatever those goals are, especially in those early days. So even looking at, how understanding nutrition, we look at some of our neighborhoods, and for Black and Brown people, we don't have as many options of organic food. We don't have a lot of healthy options in our neighborhoods. So making sure that they understand how their nutrition and their diet impacts their milk supply, really cutting into the basics of your own personal health and wellness, and how it impacts your baby's personal health and wellness, your milk production, how you sleep, your stress levels. All of those things are hidden variables that aren't really touched on when it comes to supporting lactation goals. So we really make sure that we drive those in. And in meeting my clients for the first time, if they have questions around lactation, those are the questions I'm asking. How are you managing your stress? What are your coping mechanisms? What does your living arrangement look like? What does your support system look like? All of those have a major, major impact on lactation, and those are the things that we're not really educated on, where we're even from little girls, our baby dolls came with bottles. So we're already preconditioned to think that our breasts aren't there to do what they're supposed to do. So it's
Yeah.
instantly reaching for a bottle. So understanding now, we see little girls walking around with baby carriers for their baby dolls. And that's changed the narrative of what breast and chest feeding look like in terms of support. So again, just cutting to the basics, making sure that they understand the foundation of what lactation is, and then addressing any obstacles in real time.
Now, Stephanie, we talked about, thank you, Janine, for that. We talked
Mhm.
about some of the risk and the disparities. Let's talk about how we can improve the breast rating rate among Black women.
Absolutely. I think there's a couple of different things. I mean, individually, Janine hits on a couple of things, which is that making sure that we are connected to people who have the information, knowledge, and tools to help us to be successful. If that is your goal, to feed your baby and to breastfeed them, that's the first start, is getting as much information as possible, and also getting around people who have been successful in their breastfeeding experience. It's often that, we hear all the time, we're like, breastfeed, it's okay to breastfeed in public. It's okay, to return to work and make sure that you have appropriate breastfeeding accommodations. Why we're doing that is because we're trying to address a systemic issue, which is a barrier for moms when they're trying to continue breastfeeding. If you don't have support from your provider, if you don't have support within your hospital systems, it can be a challenge. I also think that one of the things that we really have to think about is what it means for those first few important hours and days when moms are recovering and trying to feed their babies and learn about them. Even the first hour is so important. So we can share what it is, what it means in that first golden hour when that baby arrives, to have skin to skin, attempt latch, and then ask for help if that's not going well, because that can set the stage for everything else as we move along. And then lastly, I think as a system, because we have to think about that, as a system, what we have to do better is to not have the thought process of, well, you know what, we're just going to do whatever, do whatever. If you want to feed your baby formula, that's fine too. Because the reality is that internationally, not addressing this issue of breastfeeding and providing milk for our babies through breastfeeding, it is causing infant mortality at an all-time high. And that's something that cannot be fixed by providing formula.
Hmm.
So we have to arm ourselves with knowledge in the community to make sure that what we're not doing is having an apathy towards that because it's work, and that we have a system that doesn't support breastfeeding moms, but we have to continue for advocacy and providing tools and knowledge to ensure that our families are successful. Because it's not their fault that they're not successful. It's the system's fault for not providing the tools and resources that allow for our families to
Yeah.
be.
It's that liquid gold.
Yeah,
Doesn't
absolutely.
cost a thing, but it's priceless. Now, Janine, before we go, Stephanie, thank you so much for this wealth of information and both of you being here. Can you share with us some of the benefits? Stephanie, you breastfed your baby. Janine, you did, and I did. So just share our secrets with benefits of breastfeeding.
Well, we all know like the snapback culture can be very toxic, but let's talk about the facts of breastfeeding and caloric burn. You can burn upwards of 500 or more calories a day just breastfeeding alone.
That's
So, in those moments when you're breastfeeding and it feels like you're not doing anything, you're not contributing to your family, laundry needs to be done, dishes need to be washed, dinner needs to be cooked, and you feel like you haven't done much, you are very efficient in your day's work providing breast milk to your babies. It is a full body workout in order for milk to be ejaculated from your breast. So kudos to you on that. Also, in terms of just oxytocin release. So when you're breastfeeding or chest feeding your baby, holding your baby, especially in that skin to skin contact, it aids in that postpartum healing and psychological healing for you to be able to hold your baby, see your baby, smell your baby. All of those things help release that love hormone that we need to get through, especially those first 6 to 8 weeks of life. And also looking at just overall hormonal balance. We all know after having a baby, it is a crash in hormones. You have rage, you have anxiety, you have sadness, overwhelming sense of joy. So, just that feeding time alone can kind of isolate you and your baby. Again, with that love hormone of oxytocin being released, it allows you to kind of recalibrate some of those hormones so that way you can get back to feeling like the you were before this tiny person was introduced into your world. So,
Forever.
forever. So yeah, those are just some of the main benefits, but primarily for the caloric burn as well, and you can get to eat what you want. So go
Mhm.
ahead. If you want to have a little slice of pizza, you want that hamburger, that extra slice of bacon, go ahead, girl. Your body needs it.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for this wealth of information. For more information, Stephanie, where can our viewers go?
absolutely. They can go to urbanbabybeginnings.org on our website. hit refer now, they can get in connection with one of our intake coordinators that can connect them to people like Janine and other doulas who are doing this work. So if you don't have access to a computer, you can call us at 833-782-2229, which is really 1-833 RVA baby.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Janine Rogers and Stephanie Spencer. It's been a great show brought to us by Urban Baby Beginnings, and we'll be back with another episode soon. God bless you.